The metal walls of the alien warship pulsed with red lights, casting long shadows in the narrow hallway where screams and alarms echoed through the dark. The great Kalthari vessel, shaped like a silver claw reaching across the stars, was alive. With chaos, soldiers in burning orange armor rushed through the corridors, shouting orders in a harsh language full of growls and sharp clicks. At the heart of this madness, behind a thick layer of locked steel doors, sat a human prisoner named Elias Wren. His wrists were bruised from chains, and blood dried on his knuckles. But his eyes stayed sharp, alert, unbroken. He had been taken. Months ago, during a skirmish on Terra 9 where Kalthari forces crushed the last human outpost, the Kalthari had won the battle, but they never broke the man they captured. They called him a savage, a soldier without fear, a human too dangerous to kill without orders. And so they locked him away, far from the war, but not far enough from history. That night, the ship's heavy doors hissed open, and Elias looked up, surprised to see not a guard or torturer, but her. She stepped inside, tall and regal, wearing armor that glowed softly beneath the cold lights. Her crown shimmered with tiny crystals that changed color with her breath. Her name was Saravan, daughter of the Emperor, heir to the Kalthari throne, and the most protected being in the Empire. Voice was soft, but carried pain. "You saved my life back on Terra 9," she said, standing just beyond the cells. "Invisible energy field? I was trapped under fire. My guards were dead. You could have killed me." Elias stared at her. "I don't kill unarmed people, even if they're from your side." She hesitated. "Why?" "Because I'm human." She stepped closer, and the shield dropped with a hiss. The room felt too small. "You saved me, a princess of your enemy. Why does that make sense to you?" Elias raised his chained hands. "Because war isn't everything. At some point you either lose your soul, or you save someone else's." Silence stretched between them. That strange quiet, something fragile, bloomed respect, maybe even something deeper. She visited again, and again. Over days, over weeks. At first they argued. About the war, about right and wrong, about why they fought. But slowly the walls cracked. They shared stories. She spoke of her lonely palace, where trust was a weapon. He spoke of Earth's burning skies and friends who never made it back. Saravan brought him food once. Warm, real. He laughed and told her it tasted like rubber. She smiled. For the first time in her life, she felt seen. For the first time since capture, he felt hope. But on the 100th day, the door opened not to her, but to soldiers. Armed, cold. One tossed a file to the ground. Its glowing text easy to read. Princess compromised, eliminate human and royal traitor. Saravan's own father had ordered it. The council saw her visits. The spies heard whispers. They believed she had fallen for the enemy. A crime worse than treason. She appeared moments later, out of breath, gripping a stolen code chip. Her voice shook as she unlocked the chains. "They're coming to kill you. And me. We have to run." "You're a princess," Elias said, stunned. "You'd give it all up for me? You gave me freedom in a cage," she said. "Now I'll give you a future." Alarms wailed again, louder this time. The whole ship trembled as bulkheads closed and energy guns charged. She grabbed his arm. "Move." They ran, through smoke and chaos. Through the bowels of the ship, sirens screamed. As soldiers turned their guns on her, she cut them down without mercy. Elias fought beside her, taking back the war that had tried to break him. They reached a hangar, stole a dropship. But just as they rose into the stars, a shadow filled the window. A massive Earth dreadnought had arrived, blocking their escape. Elias stared at it, face full of anger. "Earth's here too." They intercepted messages. "They think you're a traitor. So both sides want us dead." She gripped the controls. "Then we fly." And they did into hyperspace. Fire behind them and the entire galaxy chasing. The dropship rattled as it tore through hyperspace, sparks flying from the damaged hull, while Elias held tightly to the side rail, still catching his breath. Saravan sat in the pilot's seat, hands shaking but eyes locked forward, guiding the ship. Through a narrow stream of starlight, Behind them, a wave of destruction followed. The Calthari warship burned from within, and a massive Earth's dreadnought had locked onto their trail. Elias wiped blood from his brow, heart pounding, thinking of how fast everything had changed. One day he was a prisoner, silent in a steel cell. The next, he was fleeing across the galaxy with the daughter of his enemy, hunted by both of their worlds. "They're still tracking us," Saravan said, voice tight. "Are in our wake. An Earth command has set a hunter ship on our path." Elias leaned forward, scanning the cracked radar. "Need to land somewhere they won't look." She gave a small nod and began a fast calculation. "There's a moon. In the Threxo system, barren, no central law, no real governments. It's full of smugglers and killers, but we can disappear there, at least for a while." "Good," Elias said. "Because if we stay in the air, they'll blast us out of the stars." As the dropship exited hyperspace, the site of the Threxos moon came into view. It was a rough, gray rock floating near a dying red star. Space debris circled it like angry insects, and old ship husks were scattered across its upper orbit. They flew low, avoiding sensors, and slipped past broken satellites to land in a dusty crater surrounded by jagged black cliffs. The moment the ship touched ground, Elias grabbed their weapons to rifles, a plasma pistol, and one Calthari blade. "We need supplies and repairs," he said. "You trust me to walk into a hive of killers?" Saravan raised her chin slightly. "Not just anyone. And you won't be going in alone." Together, they stepped onto the harsh, wind-blown moon, wrapping themselves in cloaks to hide their faces. The nearest outpost, a scum-filled place called Grave Point, sat at the edge of a canyon, built from shipwrecks and scrap metal. Inside, rough-looking aliens and outlaws filled the streets. Some had tusks, others wore breathing tubes. Every eye watched the newcomers with interest. Grave Point wasn't a place for love or politics. It was a place where credits bought silence and betrayal came cheap. Elias and Saravan traded one of her royal crystal rings for a bag of food and fuel cells. But their presence didn't go unnoticed. In a dark bar lit by flickering neon signs, a bounty hunter sat in the corner with a cracked visor and a smile full of broken teeth. He had seen the posters, seen the bounties. Two of the most wanted fugitives in the galaxy, walking right into his backyard. "Lucky day," he whispered, pressing a button on his wrist. A dozen mercenaries moved in quietly, circling the bar as Elias sipped from a metal cup, his senses sharp. The first shot was fired by a cloaked alien, but Elias had already kicked the table over, dragging Saravan behind it. Energy bolts lit the room like a thunderstorm. Elias rolled to the side and fired, dropping two attackers. Saravan slashed through another with her glowing blade, graceful and deadly. The bar exploded into panic. Bottles shattered, bodies fell. When it was over, 10 bounty hunters lay dead, and the rest had fled. Elias stood over the last one, holding him by the collar.
"Oh!"
"Who sent you?" "Everyone," the man groaned. "Every system has your names now. You're worth more than a fleet of warships." Elias let him drop and turned to Saravan. "We're not just running anymore. We're being hunted." She nodded slowly, wiping blood from her cheek. "Then we stop running. We start fighting." Outside, they found a larger ship parked near the scrapyards. It was an old model, rusty but fast, the Eclipse Fang. Elias worked fast, using tools, from the dead mercenaries to hotwire the ignition. As they lifted into the sky, fires burned across the moon's surface behind them. "What now?" Saravan asked, strapped into the co-pilot's seat. "We can't keep hiding." Leah stared into the stars. "Then let's go find the only people left who might still trust me. The Soul Gate Breakers." She raised an eyebrow. "Your old unit?" "Yeah," he said. "They don't answer to Earth anymore. If we're going to survive this, we'll need them." The ship's engines roared as it vanished into space again, two fugitives rising from the ashes of war. Chased by both empires, bound by love and ready to strike back, ChatGPT said. The Eclipse Fang drifted through the silence of space, its hulls scarred from the last battle, engines humming low as it passed through asteroid fields and dead zones where no law dared reach. Inside, Elias checked the ship's systems, while Saraven sat across from him, her eyes scanning reports from the outer systems. Both of them were exhausted, but neither could afford to rest. Every major communication channel was now flashing with the same message-wanted posters of them both. Human and alien, faces side by side. The words were clear in every tongue. Wanted high treason, dead or alive. There was no doubt now. Earth Command had declared Elias a traitor, branding him a threat to humanity. Saraven's father, the Emperor of Calthor, had ordered her death for breaking royal bloodline law. Their decision to love each other had become a threat to two entire civilizations. Every bounty hunter, every mercenary crew, every desperate soul in the stars now saw them as a golden ticket. With danger closing in from all sides, they flew toward the edge of known space, searching for a place to hide, to breathe, to plan. That search took them to a lawless trading post on the neutral moon of Draxus, hidden beneath layers of radiation and fog, where smugglers and exiles survived in the shadows. The place smelled of oil and smoke, and strange creatures crawled across the metal walls. It was perfect for vanishing until word got out. Inside a rusty old tavern lit by red lanterns, Elias leaned over a table, speaking quietly with a mechanic about ship repairs. Saraven sat nearby, her hood drawn low, but her glowing eyes still caught attention. One wrong look was all it took. A tall bounty hunter with 4 arms and metal tusks recognized them. He didn't shout. He simply tapped his wrist. Within minutes, a dozen mercenaries started pouring in through the back entrances, forming a wide circle around the bar. Saraven stood up, her voice calm but steady. "We're surrounded." Elias sighed and cracked his knuckles. "Then let's make it count." The first mercenary stepped forward, gun raised. Elias moved first, flipping the table into the man's chest and diving for cover. Saraven rolled behind the counter, drew her plasma knife, and struck with deadly speed. Room exploded into violence. Blaster shots tore through chairs and walls. One of the mercenaries tried to flank Elias, but the human spun and fired point blank, sending him crashing into a wall of broken glass. A second bounty hunter leaped at Saraven with a spiked chain, but she caught it, twisted his arm, and drove her blade into his chest. The bar shook with every blast, and smoke filled the air. But they fought like they were born for it. The crowd screamed and scattered. By the end of it, the floor was littered with bodies and fire. The few who survived fled in fear. Elias stood, breathing hard, his shirt torn, his face bruised, but still burning with focus. "That's the third ambush this week," he said. Saraven wiped blood from her wrist. "They're closing in faster. We can't keep this up." They left before reinforcements arrived and took to the stars again. As the ship sped away, Saraven activated a galaxy-wide relay scan. She pulled up the full list of active bounties and news from both Earth and Calthor. The numbers had doubled. Entire criminal syndicates were forming search parties. Even Earth's own Blackguard, an elite kill team, had been deployed to hunt them. Elias leaned back in his seat, jaw clenched. "They'll never stop. Not until we're both dead. Then we need to strike first," Saraven said. "We need more than a ship and luck. We need allies." Elias nodded slowly. "There's only one group I know that hasn't sold their soul to Earth Command, the Soulgate Breakers." Saraven looked up sharply. "The rogue unit that rebelled years ago? They were my brothers and sisters in the field," Elias said, his voice quiet but full of old memories. "We refused to follow a kill order that would have wiped out innocent civilians. So Earth labeled us traitors and hunted us down. And now you want to go back?" Saraven asked. "Would they even trust you?" Elias met her gaze. "They trusted me before I became a fugitive. If there's any chance they still do, we need to try." With no other choice, they charted a course for the asteroid belts near the dead star, Caldas V, where the Soulgate Breakers were last seen. As the Eclipse Fang disappeared into the deep void once more, the galaxy around them grew darker, crueler, and more dangerous by the hour, but Elias and Saraven held on to each other, hearts unshaken, preparing for the fight ahead. The Eclipse Fang flew into the thick clouds of the Caldas V asteroid belt, its hull groaning as it weaved between spinning rocks and old mining wrecks. Elias kept both hands tight on the controls while Saravan scanned for life signs, her fingers flying over glowing buttons. The path was dangerous, filled with gravity pockets and debris fields. But Elias knew the breakers had chosen this place for a reason. No outsider would survive long enough to find them. His eyes scanned the dark, waiting for a signal, a flare, anything to show they were close. Then a sudden light blinked on the radar brief, fast, hidden like a whisper in code. Elias smiled faintly. That's them. He tapped back a coded response, one only an old squad mate would know. A few seconds later, a camouflaged ship appeared from the shadows, massive and silent, like a ghost made of metal. It was the Revenant, the old flagship of the Soulgate Breakers. A message flashed on screen. Follow or die. Elias didn't hesitate. He guided the Eclipse Fang into the docking bay, where armed guards in black armor waited. The moment the ramp lowered, dozens of weapons were aimed at them. Saravan raised her hands, but Elias stepped forward, face calm. A tall woman approached, her hair gray at the edges, her eyes sharp. Elias Wren, she said, I should kill. You, hello to you too, Commander Vale, Elias said. You're still ugly. The tension cracked as Vale let out a short, dry laugh and waved the weapons down. Still have a death wish, I see. She glanced at Saravan. And now you're bringing royalty into our home? She saved my life, Elias said. More than once, and she's not with her people anymore, just like we aren't with ours. Vale stared at Saravan a moment longer, then nodded. We'll talk inside. In the command chamber, the lights were dim, and the screen showed real-time war feeds, Earth ships burning colonies, Calthari forces invading border moons. Vale listened as Elias explained everything as capture. The rescue, the escape, the bounty, and the war growing darker by the day. When he finished, Saravan stepped forward and spoke for the first time. I don't ask for pity, she said. I ask for help. Not just for us, for what's coming. This war will not stop with 2 deaths. It will swallow entire systems. You know this. Vale rubbed her chin, thinking. We've got a dozen warships, 2 dreadnoughts, and a team that knows how to make pain. But we're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. You want us to fight both Earth and Calthar? Elias said. We want you to help us show the galaxy the truth. That love between species, peace between enemies, isn't weakness, it's power. But they'll never listen unless we survive long enough to prove it. A long silence followed, then Vale stood. There's a broadcast station in the Zara Drift, hidden, abandoned. We take that station. We send your story across every channel. Unfiltered. Let the people decide who the real enemy is. Elias stood too. Then let's move. The breakers jumped into action. Warships fired up. Fighters launched. In less than an hour, they were in hyperspace, flying toward Zara. But as they arrived, they weren't alone. A Calthari destroyer and 2 Earth cruisers were already there, guarding the relay station. It was a trap. Elias stared at the screen. Jaw clenched. They knew. Let's give them a reason to regret it, Vale said, her voice cold and sharp. Breakers full assault? Space exploded in color and violence. The breakers came in fast, weapons blazing, flying in tight formations. Earth and Calthari ships opened fire, beams of energy slicing through space. The Revenant shook as a torpedo struck its side, but it kept going, punching a hole in the Calthari flank. Elias and Saravan flew together in a stolen fighter, dodging fire, blasting enemy turrets. The battle burned bright, chaotic, and wild. Ships shattered. Alarms screamed. In the middle of it all, Elias landed their fighter on the relay station, charging in with Saravan at his side. Inside, guards waited. A fierce fight broke out in the narrow halls, but the two moved like shadows, him with his rifle, her with her blade. When they reached the control room, Elias began the broadcast. Cameras turned on, lights flashed, looked into the lens, blood on his face, fire in his eyes. My name is Elias Wren. I was a soldier of Earth. This is Saravan daughter. Of the Calthari Emperor, we were enemies. We are hunted. Not because we betrayed anyone, but because we refused to hate each other. His words echoed across the stars. People across planets stopped and listened. The truth had broken through. Just then, the station rocked one last Earth missile. Had locked on. Sarvin slammed her fist on the console, rerouting power. The missile missed by inches. The broadcast finished. The galaxy had heard them. Cost would come later, but they had lit a spark. The stars outside the shattered windows of the Zara relay station burned bright and distant. Like silent witnesses to the war unfolding across the galaxy, smoke filled the control room as Elias helped Saraven to her feet, both of them bruised, and breathless after the brutal fight. The broadcast had gone out, reaching hundreds of systems, and for the first time the truth was out there for all to see. Their message to fugitives from opposite worlds, choosing love over war, had begun to shift hearts across space. On outer colonies, rebellion flags were raised. On war-torn planets, soldiers refused to fire on civilians. But that hope came at a cost. The moment the broadcast ended, Earth and Calthor forces launched a joint retaliation. Ships were sent to every sector where the breakers were known to hide. Civilian channels were flooded with propaganda. Bounties on Elias and Saraven tripled overnight. On the run again, they escaped the burning relay station aboard a stealth skimmer, barely evading the wave of enemy ships that swarmed in minutes. Later, as they drifted silently through asteroid shadows, Elias patched into underground transmissions and listened to whispers of what their message had sparked. Some called them heroes, others called them liars. A few called them something, new symbols of peace. "We've started something we can't control," Elias said quietly, watching a screen flash with news of riots and rebellions. "Good," Saraven replied. "Let them try to control the truth." They landed on a hidden moon base built into the side of a frozen crater-ran old breaker stronghold, and met Vale and the rest of the squad. Casualties were high, ships were damaged, morale was worn thin. But the broadcast had given them purpose. "We've got allies now," Vale said, showing reports from 5 different systems where rebels had overthrown corrupt governors, and more are joining every hour. Still, Earth Command and the Calthari Empire were not sitting still. In a cold and grim conference above the planet Velos, the two powers agreed on one terrible plan. They would end the threat in one move by, targeting the one thing still sacred to both sides, the peace summit at Station Orionis, a neutral ground where future treaties were being shaped. Blaming Elias and Saraven for a staged attack, they would strike the summit, kill the leaders, and pin the massacre on the fugitives. "They want to make us monsters," Sarvin whispered when Vale showed the intercepted intel. "They want." Fear to bury the truth, Elias clenched his fists. "Then we stop them. We stop the strike, and we show the galaxy what real monsters look like." The breakers began planning the impossibly interception inside the most fortified space route in the galaxy, where war fleets patrolled every corner. With only a handful of ships and half their forces, they would have to outfly, outgun, and outthink 2 empires to reach Station Orionis before the attack began. The mission was madness, but they had no choice. On the final night before the operation, Elias and Saraven stood on a snowy cliff near the base, looking up at the stars. No words passed between them for a long time. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft. "If I die tomorrow, I want to die beside you." Elias turned to her, touched her hand gently, and said, "We won't die, we'll live, even if we have to burn down half the galaxy to do it." They kissed under the starlight, not as fugitives, not as enemies, but as 2 souls, choosing each other in a galaxy full of hate. At dawn, the breaker fleet launched. Stealth modules activated, coordinates locked, hearts steady. They flew like ghosts through the black, determined to stop a massacre and rewrite the future, even if it meant facing death in the cold silence of space. ChatGPT said. The breaker fleet moved through the dark space lanes like shadows, silent and fast, weaving between asteroid belts and sensor fields as they raced toward Station Orionis. The air inside the ships was tense. Everyone knew this could be their final mission. Elias stood on the bridge of the Eclipse Fang, staring at the growing dot in the distance, the peace station that floated like a silver coin in orbit over a glowing gas giant. The summit would begin in less than an hour, and already, both Earth and Kalthari fleets were taking positions nearby, pretending to guard it. But deep inside their ships, hidden warheads were being prepared, timed to strike the station once. Elias and Saravan were seen near it. They wanted to turn peace into a trap, then use it as fuel for endless war. Elias turned to Vale through the coms. Ready on all sides? Vale's face appeared hard and focused. The stealth squad's in position. EMP bomb set. When the signal hits, we blind them all. Saravan stood beside Elias, armored in sleek Kalthari battle gear, modified with breaker tech. She looked calm, but her eyes held fire. If we're going to stop them, we have to expose their lies before the missiles fall. As the station drew closer, Elias activated a short-range burst jammer and cloaking shield, hiding their approach. At the same time, a small team of breakers sneaked into the outer docking rings using stolen ID codes. The plan was bold hack into the summit's central broadcast hub, override security feeds, and show the galaxy the proof intercepted plans, flight logs, and orders for the false flag attack. But the enemy was ready. The moment Elias and Saravan stepped onto the station's surface, alarms went off. Automated defenses activated. Earth Black Guard troopers in black armor and Kalthari Royal enforcers charged down the halls. Elias raised his weapon and fired. The sound echoed through the station as the first squad fell. Saravan dashed forward. With stunning speed, her plasma blades slicing through enemy ranks. The hallways filled with smoke, shouting, and fire. Breakers swarmed behind them, planting disruptors, taking over control rooms and locking down corridors. The countdown to the false strike had begun, missiles already moving toward the station from cloaked ships nearby. Elias and Saravan reached the broadcast center, its heavy blast doors sealed shut. "We don't have time to hack this," Elias said. "Then we break it," Saravan replied. Together, they planted charges along the door's seams and stepped back. The explosion rocked the floor. Metal bent, sparks flew, and the doors burst open. Inside, tech crews scrambled, but they were too slow. Saravan hurled a stun grenade, and Elias stormed in, taking control of the console. Bloodied and exhausted, he activated the emergency override. Every screen across the galaxy lit up. Every ship, every home, every outpost. Elias appeared on the feed, live from Station Orionis. Behind him, Saravan held up a data tablet showing the Truthreal documents. Real orders, all signed by Earth Command and the Kalthari Council. "This is not a rescue," Elias said into the camera. "It's a warning. You are seconds away from witnessing mass murder. Earth and Kalthar plan to destroy this station and blame us. But we have proof. Look, judge for yourselves." Across the stars, people stared. Soldiers paused. Generals hesitated. Families gasped. Even inside enemy flagships, crew members looked at one another with doubt and fear. Just then, missiles appeared on radar. Fast, silent, locked on target. Vale's voice screamed through the coms. "Impact in 30 seconds?" Saravan slammed commands into the station's shields, rerouting power, overriding lockdowns. Elias barked into the mic. "All rebel ships, fire interceptors. Target incoming missiles." The breaker ships broke formation, launching flares and defensive drones. The missiles were seconds away. One exploded mid-flight. Two more clipped by lasers. A final one streaked through unharmed till a breaker cruiser, the Argent Hound, rammed it head-on. The explosion lit up space like a star being born. Inside the station, everything shook. Lights went out. Smoke filled the air. Then silence. They had done it. The truth was out. The missiles failed. The attack had been stopped, but not without cost. The Argent Hound was gone, and many lives had been lost. Elias dropped to his knees, not from pain, but from the weight of what they had just done. Saravan knelt beside him and placed her hand on his. For the first time in weeks, they felt something new: hope. The station's surviving leaders stepped forward, now witnesses to both the attack and the truth. Some of them looked ashamed, some stunned. But one thing was clear: the war would no longer be as simple as it once was. The galaxy had seen the truth, and it could not be unseen. A cold stillness settled over Station Orionis after the battle. The silence wasn't peace, it was the pause before a wave. Smoke drifted through broken hulls. Fighters floated outside in defensive patterns, their lights flashing in warning. Inside the ruined control chamber, Elias stood over the damaged console. Blood dried across his face, clothes torn, but his eyes steady. Around him, Saravan helped wounded allies sit up, while breakers and even a few summit survivors shared water and medical kits. The truth had been broadcast. The missiles stopped, but both empires weren't retreating, they were regrouping. Across space, Earth and Kalthari Command refused to acknowledge the attack. They claimed the feed was a fabrication, the orders fake, the video staged. They said Elias and Saravan were still wanted terrorists, and a final push to destroy them had already begun. But it was too late for lies to take hold again. All across the galaxy, something had changed. Colonies that once feared to speak now raised voices. Civilians who had lost everything in crossfire stood up and demanded justice. Even within the Empire's own ranks, murmurs of rebellion grew louder. Ships ignored orders, soldiers questioned. Leaders, a choice was rising before everyone: follow hate or choose something better, and that terrified the ones in power. As fleets closed in from both sides, Elias met with the station's surviving delegates. Some were still afraid, but others stood with him now. "You saved us," one said. "If not for your warning, we'd all be dead. Whatever you are, whatever they call, we owe you." Elias only nodded, weary but calm. "Then help us hold the line." Together, they built a last stand. All the remaining defenders on Station Orionis prepared for the final wave. Breakers, diplomats, old guards, even civilian techs joined the fight. They armed old turrets, recharged shields, patched broken systems. Each station wasn't a fortress, but it was all they had. Saravan led a defense team to the outer docking rings, training former enemies side by side. She fought like fire quick, focused, never hesitating. Her presence inspired them. For the first time, people of Earth and Kalthar fought together. Elias worked on strategy, linking coms with rebel ships across sectors. His voice was calm and clear, guiding smaller fleets to rally at Orionis. One by one, they came freighters, converted into gunships, damaged cruisers refitted by engineers, even outlaw vessels answering the call. Some came out of loyalty, others out of hope. Many just came because they believed. As the Empire's main fleets arrived, 1,000 ships darkened the stars. They demanded surrender. No mercy would be given. Elias stepped onto the command deck and opened a channel. His face appeared before the enemy. "We will not kneel," he said plainly. "We will not hide. You have lost control. Your people have seen what you've done. Every ship you send to kill us will only make the fire grow stronger." He closed the channel and turned to Saravan. "Ready?" She gave a small smile. "Always." And the final battle began. Space lit up as both sides clashed in a fury of light and thunder. Missiles flew like stars being born and dying. Beams of plasma split the dark. Explosions rolled across the field as fighters danced through wreckage and debris. Elias flew the Eclipse Fang once more, weaving through fire, giving orders to rebel fleets. Saravan led boarding teams onto enemy ships, disabling weapons from within. Together, they turned chaos into hope. But the enemy was strong, their numbers endless. Slowly, the rebels were being pushed back. Station shields began to fail. Alarm sirens screamed. Then something happened. Dozens of ships from the enemy's own fleets broke formation. Crews had refused to follow orders. Captains had mutinied. They turned their guns on their former masters. Suddenly the tide shifted. Now it was a war not just for survival, but for a new future. One earned with blood, sacrifice, and choice. Amid the fire and chaos, Elise's ship was hit. The controls sparked and failed, and he crashed into a Kalthari dreadnought. Staggering from the wreckage, he climbed through flames, trying to plant a disruptor to destroy the dreadnought's core. Just as he was surrounded by enemy guards, Saravan appeared, blades spinning, cutting a path through them. She reached him and shouted, "Together!" They activated the core disruptor, then escaped in a pod seconds before the dreadnought exploded. In a sunbright blast, when the light faded, rebel forces surged forward. One by one, the enemy began to fall. The empires hadn't just lost a battle. They had lost control over the truth. And in that truth, something stronger had been born, a united resistance, built not on fear, but on love and choice. Elias and Saravan were pulled from the escape pod by allies, wounded but alive. As cheers filled the station and broken ships drifted in victory, they held each other tight, knowing the fight wasn't over, but the world would never be the same. The dust of battle slowly settled across the battered orbit of Station Orionis, where debris floated silently and ships flickered like dying stars. Inside the station, sparks rained from broken lights as engineers rushed to restore power. War had shaken every wall, but it had also shaken something deeper across the galaxy people's hearts. Elias sat in the medical bay, his shoulder wrapped in bandages, bruises lining his face, but his eyes were open, watching the screen that displayed the systems tuning in. Millions were watching. From icy mining moons to crowded city planets, the galaxy was holding its breath. Saravan walked in slowly, her armor scorched and cracked, but her voice still calm as she said, "They're listening now." "Really listening?" Elias nodded and stood, wincing slightly. We'd tell them the truth. All of it. Hours later, they stood together on the station's main platform, where the final summit had once been planned. The floor was scorched. The banners burned, and parts of the walls had been blasted open, showing the stars beyond. But they faced the galaxy anyway, broadcasted live to every colony, every world, every home that dared to tune in. Elias spoke first, his voice clear, but heavy with everything they had seen. He told them about the lies, the fake attack, the joint plan by Earth and Kalthor to keep war going for profit and control. He named names. He showed documents. He played the messages they had risked their lives to get. Then Saravan stepped forward and said, "I was born to rule a throne soaked in silence and obedience. But I chose a human, not because he saved me, but because he believed in a future where we didn't have to kill to belong. If that future is treason, then let us be traitors." To hate, the speech echoed across the stars. Entire fleets stopped moving. Some commanders surrendered on the spot. Others shut down their weapons. Even on Earth and the Kalthari homeworld, people filled the streets demanding answers. Leaders who had once spoken with power now found themselves hunted by their own citizens. The empires didn't fall that day, but the first cracks ran deep. Station Orionis became a symbol. It's not just of war's failure, but of what came after. A neutral space, run by no empire, guarded by those who chose peace over fear. And Elias and Saravan, once hunted by both sides, became its protectors. It wasn't easy. Some still hated them. Some wanted revenge. Others tried to destroy what they were building. But together, they pushed back. They worked with old enemies, sat with angry leaders, and built something new. Not a government, not a rebellion, but a bridge. Years passed, and the fire of war dimmed. Some places still burned, but others healed. A child born after the battle asked one day, "Why did they fight?" And someone answered, "Because no one before them was brave enough to love across the line." On a quiet night, Elias stood alone on the station's observation deck, looking at Earth in the distance. Saravan joined him, wrapping her arm around his. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "All the running, the pain?" He shook his head. "Slowly, no, because we're still here." She smiled and leaned her head on his shoulder. Together, out there. In the silence between stars, two voices had once stood against the noise of war, and somehow they had been heard. not by force, not by fear, but by truth and by love. The kind of love powerful enough to change worlds.